It's important to anticipate the needs of others and to try to meet those needs as quickly as possible on the front side. And I think about this through the lens of my work. I don't really have a very demanding job. I do office secretary sort of work for a low-level executive for Walmart stores. So my boss runs 9 Walmart stores in rural Montana, and I'm his office secretary basically. So I kind of sometimes I'll tag along and go in the stores and talk to people a little bit, or help with a few sort of little tour things we do to visit stores. But most of the time my day winds up being just kind of going to the office and hanging around and being there to answer the phone if there's a need, or sending an email if there's a need to send an email about something. And you know, it's all very basic stuff. There's not anything complicated about it. And I guess to a point, it takes a level of detail. It takes a level of discretion. If you're a person who is going to say something crazy, or you're unreliable, or you're a wild card and you don't know what you probably should or shouldn't say when you're dealing with corporate correspondence, then yeah, there's some things that probably wouldn't come natural to people. But all things considered, it's just a run-of-the-mill office job. And so I guess the point I'm getting at is there's not a lot of cases where I would say, here's something worth talking about related to work, just because work is pretty simple. There's not really a lot to talk about, But what came to mind, and I think this is important and it's worth talking about, is how meaningful small gestures can be when you think about the needs of others and you anticipate them and you try to meet them before the person actually reaches out to say, hey, can you help me with this? Little things like, I put together expenses every week for my boss, and he could do it himself, but he doesn't. So I'll just take his receipts and put them all into the digital report so that he can just press the button and submit his expenses. Sometimes that means I'll call a hotel and ask for a folio to be sent over, or any number of other things, If he gets his oil changed, I'll call him up and say, hey, can you print off the receipt for me so I can add that to his expense report, whatever it is, little things. But it's something where he doesn't ever have to say, hey, are my expenses done? He doesn't ever have to explain what's going on. All he has to do is just, whenever he feels like it, submit his weekly expenses. That's all he has to do. And there's no need for us to really talk about it. There's no need to explain or ask or anything. It just is what it is. And that's not a big deal. It's not that it's complicated in any way, but it's one thing that he, as a executive, doesn't have to have on his plate. He can think about other things and do other things, and that can just not be a concern. I was thinking about a project we've been getting people set up to go do. So we'll get people from various stores to all come together and work in one particular facility when we're remodeling that store, so that they have extra people there to kind of help do things that need to be done. And getting hotels set up for people, getting that all figured out so that these people have a place to stay. It's not complicated. It's not difficult. It's just a matter of making it painless for the people who are going to be participating in the project, so they don't have to worry about where they're going to stay. They don't have to ask about it. They don't have to touch base to see if all of the details are worked out. All they have to do is put their name in the hat and know that it'll be taken care of. And if there's any concerns, those will probably be addressed on the front side. And all they have to do is maybe check their email and see, where are they going to go to check into their hotel, and that's it. You make it simple for people. And sometimes if you do these things sooner rather than later, you wind up getting credit for making people's lives easier, and they'll appreciate this. And you could do the exact same thing a little later on, and you could be a little bit behind the curve instead of ahead of it. It's the exact same action, but somebody comes to you and says, hey, what's the status of this? Well, you put them in a position where they have to think about something, and then they have to ask you what the status is, and then you can react to it at that point. But you've kind of missed that opportunity to have the sweet spot where you dealt with something simple as soon as possible, and you put in not a lot of effort, but quality concerted effort on the front side. And it just creates an environment where people have a little bit more peace of mind to know that if they need something, you will be prompt about it, and you will potentially, if possible, within reason, anticipate their needs before they actually ask. It means a lot. I think about when we have people who maybe need to be reimbursed for something. And, if you're an hourly employee and you're entitled to a reimbursement for something like mileage or meals if you were traveling or something like that, these are things where, it might take a certain degree of courage to go and say, hey, can I get reimbursed for this expense? Or, when am I going to get paid out for that? And just addressing it sooner rather than later so that employee understands that they don't have to go find a manager or something and ask for that particular concern or need to be met, because it's just going to be handled before they ever got around to thinking, okay, maybe I need to find somebody and see what the status of that is, or see how we can solve that problem, or when we can get it figured out. Like, just not having to ask is really meaningful sometimes. Like, you don't want to have to go chase somebody down and ask about something that you shouldn't have to really be asking about. It should just be taken care of. And a lot of the things that make a big difference in somebody's day is just the simplicity of a problem not being a problem in the first place. And you'll never get credit for that, because you tend to get credit, I guess, for fixing problems that already are known about. When somebody says, hey, this is a problem, can you work on it? And you solve the problem, you get a certain recognition because the problem has been resolved. But probably the greater kudos you will get passively is when you are able to address a problem before it's a problem, and then it just isn't a pain point for anybody, and they don't even think about the fact that you did anything to make their life easier. It's just not a problem. So look for opportunities to build trust with people just by being quick to respond and looking for opportunities to anticipate requests and needs before they become actual requests that are communicated to you. And whenever you do that, you're going to build some level of trust with people, and you send that message that you respect people. Because if somebody has to come and chase you down to get you to do what you could have just handled on the front side, it kind of sends the message maybe to somebody that they don't matter as much. It plants that seed of feeling like things aren't going to happen unless they go out of their way to ask. And then there's that awkward relationship of when is the right time to ask. You don't want to disturb people. You don't want to be an imposition. And so there's this kind of a little dance that goes on where people sort of want to bring up something, but they don't bring it up because they're hoping that it'll just, get figured out at some point without them having to disturb somebody. And, then there's a little bit of passive resentment because somebody's thinking, yeah, but why do I even have to ask? Why can't somebody just, know that this is a thing and then deal with it, so I don't have to be an imposition and, beg for something to be done. Another example of this is like we were paying people an incentive to do these projects, and we'll tell them, you go do this project, and if you do this project, then you get $500 or $1,000 at the end of it, just kind of as a good faith thing to reward you for signing up and going out of your way and finishing it up if you make it all the way through the project. Well, then the project comes and it goes, and somebody has to follow up to make sure that all these people that we said, we're going to give you a little bit of a financial compensation for doing this. Make sure we actually go in there, get with the HR managers and have them key it in so these people actually get that little bit of money that we promised them a while ago. And again, it's not a huge thing. It's just something that builds trust and faith when you follow up on it. You make sure that happens before somebody comes and says, hey, when are we going to get paid that money? Or are we going to get paid that? Or maybe somebody just doesn't even mention it because they forget about it, or they assume that maybe they misunderstood, or they think that they were paid for it somehow and they just missed it, whatever it might be. But you gotta follow up on this stuff and just make a point that anything that comes across your desk, whether it's big or small, at some point you circle back to it as is appropriate, and you make sure that you keep your word and you do everything in your power to enable others to also keep their word by being available to them, and keeping things from just kind of slipping out of your immediate memory and then never actually getting followed up on until somebody circles back to it later on to kind of see what is going on with that. So just being proactive on the front side instead of delaying on things, I think it makes a huge difference. And you got to put yourself in the shoes of other people to ask, what do you think somebody would, what do you think maybe is important to somebody that you work for or with? It doesn't have to be work. It could be, a relationship. It could be your spouse or your family or kids or friends or any number of things. Do you anticipate the needs or concerns of others, or do you let things just get forgotten? Do you procrastinate? You know, are you the person that doesn't get your spouse a gift for your anniversary or for a birthday or something because you forgot about it, and then you go try to do damage control at the last minute, but it doesn't really feel genuine at that point? Or do you plan these things out? Like, nobody wants to wonder if you remembered about their birthday. Like, it's just one of those things. Like, if you care, then maybe you put that person's special events into your calendar and you actually put some effort into being present for them. You know, if you care, you look for ways to show it. And it's not that you do enormous, big, overwhelming gestures. It's just you look for small ways to let people know that they matter to you and that building trust with them matters to you. And you try to keep your words sooner rather than later. And it in the end, it helps a lot too with your own peace of mind, because instead of feeling like you're always a little bit behind, then you're looking for extra things that you can do to maybe get further ahead. We always tend to kind of just be slightly behind, always chasing, trying to catch up. And if we can always just be, you know, a week ahead instead of a week behind, that can work wonders both for your peace of mind and for your credibility with others. One of the most simple things that you can do that will help you professionally and personally is just to be a person who's trustworthy, a person who's reliable, a person who can be counted on. Even if it's not anything big, it's just those small things which add up to people feeling like you are a reliable resource, whether they follow up on you or not. So, I guess I'll close with this thought. Downtown Seattle, many years ago, looking at an ATM machine at Northern Trust Bank. The symbol of an anchor was their logo, and the slogan, "Principles that endure," surrounded the anchor. And I remember in 2008, the stock market crashed and there was doubt cast over whether banking institutions could be trusted, because at that time, Washington Mutual, one of the largest credit unions in the country, had failed. And there was a lot of shadow over banking at that time. At Northern Trust Bank, which handles large accounts for people who typically have estate planning or large amounts of money, like anyone can open an account, but the criteria for opening an account at Northern Trust Bank is a lot higher than a normal bank. In any case, while people were kind of making a run on banks at that time, people were lining up at Northern Trust Bank to make deposits, because the perception of Northern Trust Bank was that it could be counted on. It's not that it's necessarily the best bank, or that it has the best features, or that it's the most glamorous institution to be a part of, or that it has branches everywhere. Like, it doesn't have any outrageous selling points per se, other than it's always been trustworthy and reliable and strives to have excellent customer service for its customers and clients. So in the end, it's not about what features you bring to the table. It's not about being the best. It's not about being the fastest or the brightest. Those things are great, but what really matters is being a name that other people know they can trust. Always try to find ways to build trust, to earn respect from other people by keeping your word. It might seem like a small thing, but ultimately, whether we're talking about personal life or business, it's a really, really big thing. If you can be trusted and people know they can count on you, then probably just about everything else will fall into place, because trust is an extremely valuable commodity. Good luck on your adventure, as always. Till next time, thanks for watching.